How can a 5-bedroom house with a pool in Australia cost less than a shoebox apartment in Sydney? In towns like Broken Hill, Port Pirie, and Andamuka, median prices have plunged to levels that feel unreal. $248,000, $285,000, even $165,000, while Sydney hovers at $1.4 million. The price gap isn't just shocking. It's an 80% gulf, locking 1.3 million renters out of home ownership. But what does buying a mansion in these places really mean for your future? The numbers may look like a dream, but what's the real cost hiding behind them? Across Australia, the numbers speak for themselves. In February 2026, the median house price in Sydney hit $1.6 million. Melbourne sits just under $1 million, at $989,356. Even the so-called affordable capitals like Darwin still demand a median of $715,084 for a house. These are figures that lock millions out of the market before they even start searching. But then there is Broken Hill. The latest domain data puts the median house price here at $248,000. Port Pirie sits at $285,000. Andamuka, a remote opal town in South Australia, is even lower, $165,000. These are not rundown shacks. Listings show 5-bedroom homes with pools, period terraces, or sprawling blocks, properties that would be out of reach for the average family in any capital city. In Broken Hill, a 4-bedroom weatherboard with a backyard can be found for $350,000. In Port Pirie, brick homes on quarter-acre lots are routinely listed below $300,000. Andamuka's market, though tiny, includes 3-bedroom houses for barely more than the price of a new car. The price gap is impossible to ignore. Sydney's median is more than 6 times that of Broken Hill, and nearly 10 times Andamuka's. The difference between a starter home in a mining town and a 1-bedroom apartment in Sydney's west can reach $1 million. Even regional Australia as a whole, at $759,883, does not come close to the sub-$300,000 reality in these towns. Nationally, the average house price is now $993,817, with every major city posting annual rises. Forecasts predict Sydney will surge another 7% this year, pushing the median past $1.9 million. For the 1.3 million renters who cannot afford to buy in the capitals, these small towns appear to offer a way out, a shot at space, privacy, and even a backyard pool, all for a fraction of the big city entry price. But these numbers raise immediate questions. Why does a house with 5 bedrooms and a pool in Broken Hill cost less than a studio apartment in Sydney? How can Andamuka's median sit at $165,000 when the national average is 6 times higher? And if these prices are real, what is the catch? The raw figures are clear, but the story behind them is anything but simple. The next step is to look past the sticker price and ask what these bargains actually buy, and what they might cost in ways the numbers do not show. Australia's property market has drawn a line in the sand. On one side stand the capital cities, where a typical house now costs nearly $1 million, well beyond the reach of most working families. On the other, a handful of towns promise something that feels almost impossible in 2026, actual home ownership with space to spare for less than half the national average. The difference is not just a number on a spreadsheet, it is the reality shaping the lives of 1.3 million renters who watch prices rise faster than their pay packets. For them, the dream of a backyard or a spare bedroom slips further away every year. The national median house price now sits at $993,817. In Sydney, the figure is even more daunting, $1.6 million. These are not just outliers. Every major city has passed the $700,000 mark, even Darwin, long considered the last affordable capital. The effect ripples through the economy. Young adults stay in share houses or with family. Parents take on second jobs or longer commutes. For many, the idea of saving a deposit, let alone paying off a mortgage, feels out of reach. The numbers are stark. A deposit on a median-priced Sydney home now requires $160,000 up front, before stamp duty or moving costs. Against this backdrop, the towns with homes under $300,000 look like a loophole in the system. The gap between the capitals and these regional outposts is routinely 80 or 85%. That is not a rounding error, it is a gulf. For the price of a small apartment in the city, buyers are being offered 5 bedrooms, a pool, and a quarter-acre block. The temptation is obvious, and for some, the calculation is simple. Trade city prices and city stress for space and a shot at ownership. But the questions that follow are not just about money. What explains this divide? How can a house in Broken Hill cost less than the stamp duty on a Sydney terrace? Is this a rare chance for families to escape the rental trap, or a warning sign that goes beyond the price tag? The numbers offer hope, but also raise doubts. Every statistic is a doorway into a bigger story about who gets to own, where they can live, and what they might give up to get there. For the millions left out of the capital city property market, these towns represent more than a bargain. They are a test of what affordability really means in Australia. The next step is to look inside these so-called bargains, to see not just what is on offer, but what is at stake for those who take the leap. Whyalla's skyline is dominated by the steelworks, a sprawling complex that once employed more than 6,000 people. Today, only about 1,200 jobs remain on site. For decades, the town's fortunes rose and fell with the global price of steel. When the furnaces ran day and night, Whyalla's population topped 30,000. But as the industry contracted, work dried up. By 2025, the town's population had slipped below 21,000, a steady decline that shows no sign of reversing. The effect on property is written in the listings. 3-bedroom homes with pools, brick veneers, or even sea glimpses routinely appear for $280,000 to $380,000. On paper, it's a buyer's dream, but the story behind those numbers is less forgiving. The local unemployment rate sits at 7.2%, nearly double the national average. Young families and skilled workers leave for Adelaide or beyond, chasing more stable work and better schools. The result is a shrinking pool of buyers and a surplus of homes built for a much larger community. Local real estate agent Peter McIver has watched the cycle for years. He points to a 5-bedroom home with a pool on McBride Terrace, renovated and landscaped, listed at $425,000. The owner bought it in 2018 for $468,000, hoping for long-term growth. 7 years later, after months on the market, it sold for a $43,000 loss. That is before accounting for inflation or the cost of improvements. McIver shrugs. It is not uncommon. People see the big houses and the price tag, but they do not see how long it takes to sell, or the losses when they have to go. Whyalla's story is not unique among regional towns tied to a single industry. The property market reflects the uncertainty of the steelworks. When jobs go, so do families, and homes that once bustled with life sit empty for months. CoreLogic data shows that nearly 3 in 10 sales in Whyalla between 2020 and 2026 resulted in a nominal loss. The average resale period stretches to 210 days, 3 times longer than in Adelaide. Investors, drawn by the low entry price, often find themselves stuck, unable to offload properties without cutting the price. For buyers, the numbers offer a warning. The low purchase price is real, but so is the risk. In Whyalla, the dream of a mansion for less than half the national average comes with the chance of a capital loss, a drawn-out sale, or both. The steelworks still hums, but the town's property market moves to a slower, less predictable rhythm. For every family that finds a bargain, there is another wondering how to get out. Coober Pedy sits in the heart of the South Australian outback, 850 kilometres from Adelaide, where summer temperatures can reach 50 degrees and the horizon stretches empty for miles. Here, the real estate market is unlike anywhere else in Australia. 3-bedroom homes are carved straight into the hills, dugouts built to escape the desert heat. Listings from late 2025 show underground family homes selling for as little as $220,000, with renovated dugouts and even pool additions pushing the top end to $340,000. The median for these unique properties hovers around $265,000, a price that would barely buy a car space in Sydney. But the price tag only tells part of the story. Coober Pedy's remoteness carries costs that don't appear in the real estate ads. The town's population, just over 1,700, relies on a tiny hospital and a handful of general practitioners. For anything beyond basic care, including heart attacks, serious injuries, or complications from mining accidents, residents depend on the Royal Flying Doctor Service. In 2024, the Royal Flying Doctor Service made 162 evacuations from Coober Pedy, a rate that means roughly 1 in 10 locals needed to be flown out for medical reasons that year. Each flight averages $28,500, with the total annual cost to the town approaching $5 million. Medicare covers a portion, but out-of-pocket expenses for a single evacuation can reach $2,000, and the rest is shouldered by government and charity. A regional health administrator describes the reality. "We are grateful for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, but you are always conscious of how far help really is. If a child breaks a leg badly, or someone has chest pain, we are calling a plane. That is the only option." The airstrip, upgraded in 2023 for 24-hour operations, stands as a lifeline, and also a reminder of what it means to live this far from city services. Buying a home underground comes with other hidden factors. Energy bills are lower, 40% less than surface houses, but renovation costs can run high, especially for moisture-proofing or updating mining era builds. Lenders are cautious, with some banks refusing to finance non-standard properties, leaving buyers to pay cash or accept higher interest rates. Resale times stretch to 6 months or more, as the pool of potential buyers remains small and mostly local. Rental yields hover at 6.5%, but high vacancy rates mean investors face long periods without tenants. For those drawn by the dream of a $220,000 mansion, Coober Pedy offers something no capital city can match: space, quiet, and a home that stays cool even when the mercury outside hits 50. But every bargain comes with a trade-off. Here, that means living with the knowledge that a medical emergency could mean a midnight flight across the desert, and that the true cost of isolation cannot be measured in the purchase price alone. Buyers in Australia's cheapest towns fall into 3 groups. The numbers are clear. 58% are over the age of 55, looking for somewhere affordable to retire. Another 31% are investors, often hoping to pick up a bargain and rent it out. Only 11% are families actually relocating for a new start. Most owners hold onto their homes for more than 8 years, longer than the average in any capital city, because selling can take time, and moving again is rarely simple. For retirees, the appeal is obvious. A couple trading a small Sydney apartment for a 5-bedroom home in Broken Hill can pocket hundreds of thousands in savings. But day-to-day life brings its own costs. Council rates in Port Pirie average $2,200 a year. Building insurance runs $1,850 a year, hundreds more than in Adelaide. Electricity bills are 15 to 20% higher than in the capitals, and every trip to the supermarket or doctor means extra fuel costs. In remote towns, petrol is often 10 to 15 cents more per litre. Water and sewerage bills in Broken Hill reach $1,100 a year, driven up by the cost of pumping water from over 100 kilometres away. Healthcare access is another reality buyers must weigh. In these towns, there is only one specialist doctor for every 2,300 people. The nearest major hospital can be 450 kilometres away. For some, that means relying on the Royal Flying Doctor Service in an emergency and planning every checkup or procedure weeks in advance. The dream of a cheap mansion comes with a trade-off, affordable on paper, but with costs and compromises that shape daily life. Supply and demand set the rules, and in these towns the scales have tipped for years. Mining booms of past decades left behind more houses than there are buyers. When the mines were hiring, developers built for a future that never arrived. In Broken Hill, Whyalla, and Port Pirie, population decline has become the norm. The result is a market where the number of available homes outstrips the number of people looking to buy, driving prices down and keeping them there. Industry dependence shapes every corner of these towns. When a single employer cuts jobs, demand for housing evaporates almost overnight. Whyalla's steelworks once supported a city of 30,000, and now with fewer than 1,200 workers, empty houses are a common sight. The same story plays out in Broken Hill, where the end of mining expansions left a glut of 4-bedroom homes. CoreLogic trend lines show that over 5 years, regional prices have barely moved, while Sydney's values climbed by nearly a quarter. Services follow the people. Since 2020, 63 bank branches have closed across regional New South Wales, with more than a dozen in mining towns alone. Retailers and government offices have pulled out, centralising in larger hubs or moving online. A shrinking population means fewer customers, and each closure makes these towns less attractive for new arrivals. Even as remote work becomes more common, 37% of Australians logged on from home at least once last year. The migration is lopsided. Most of the growth lands in coastal or well-connected regions, not in the deep inland towns where prices are lowest. As one property economist puts it, low prices here are not a mystery. They are the market's honest answer to shrinking demand, industry risk, and the steady pull of people and services toward the cities. These are structural forces, not short-term bargains. For buyers, this means the sticker price is only the beginning of the story. Australia's cheapest homes expose a stark reality. Price alone can't buy opportunity. As city prices soar past $1.5 million, the promise of regional mansions comes tied to shrinking populations, limited jobs, and slow capital growth. Each 5-bedroom bargain is a bet on what the future holds for these towns, and for those priced out elsewhere, that question matters more than ever. What would you risk for the dream?